Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And this episode will be out tomorrow, Thursday, so you guys can binge listen on the way to Grandma's house or binge listen in the Atlanta airport. And for those of you who are flying in the Atlanta airport, just be careful because they had a power outage down there and it's a mess. So just be careful, and for those of you clients that from to Seattle, also be careful because Amtrak is a mess too. Welcome to the holidays. But enough of my PSAs. I have Cathy with me, and so without further ado, I'm going to let Cathy take it away.
Well, good morning, everybody, on the Butterflies of Wisdom podcast. My name is Cathy Anello, and I am the author of the book, 6 Months to Live, Making Each Day Matter. I am also a podcast and radio host. My podcast is called Making Each Day Matter, and I just got off the radio, which Wynn was on prior to this. I think it was it 2 weeks ago you were on our show as a guest.
It was.
And
it was.
It's called the Best Life Cafe. And so that's what I do. I'm an author and a podcaster and a radio show host, and I absolutely love doing those three things.
Well, as we talked about on your podcast with me, I have published a book. You have also self-published a book. So please explain to my audience what your book is about.
Wow. Okay. So my book is really the crux of what it's about is basically how to live your life as happy as you can in our today. 6 months to live. I was not given a 6 months to live sentence, but I was living a life of unfulfilled life. I was very unhappy. I was working in a very, very toxic work environment where verbal abuse was at an all-time high and harassment was happening on a daily basis, not only to me, but to many women in our office. And it really put me in a position to grapple between a paycheck and what my integrity told me was right. And that went on for quite a while, about a year or two, and I had worked there for 15 years, but, enter one new up-and-coming prodigal son, and everything wreaked havoc. So there was a day I was having extreme anxiety and extreme panic attacks, and I would have to go to work every day for 8 or 9 hours, and I would sit in my office, breathe into a bag, and try to get through the day, and it was happening on a daily basis. So I was really very, very unhappy in my life. And then I was sitting in front of my computer on Twitter, and I wrote a Twitter post that said, I don't know how I'm going to live. Hashtag, I only know how I'm not going to live. And I looked at that post for a long time. It makes me cry just to think of it, because I realized in that moment that I only had two choices. I could stay there and suck it up, or I could walk out the door and see what the future held. At that time, I chose to stay and suck it up. And then I went on to have the hardest 6 months of my life. When I finally stood up for myself and told the owner of the company I was working for that I was not going to allow the abuse to go on anymore, that I was not going to keep quiet about it anymore, that I was going to support the other people who were complaining, he called me the next day and fired me. And getting fired from a job was the last thing I would ever thought would have happened to me, because I was a really strong worker and I was in a very high position. I'm in finance, and so, when you're in finance, you know a lot of things, and so it flabbergasted me. Well, during the 6 months that were the hardest, I had been journaling my feelings about how I didn't want to live anymore in that way, and what would be important to me if I really only had 6 months to live. So after I got fired, I realized that my job had been so wrapped around my identity of who I was that I had no idea who I was outside of that job. I was a mom, I was a grandma, I was a girlfriend, I was a mother, all these things, but who was Cathy really? So I went to a writer's workshop for Hay House, and when you go to a writer's workshop for Hay House, you have to do a book proposal, and you enter a contest to find out, and if you do win the contest, you get a publishing contract with Hay House. So I took my journal and I turned it into a proposal of how I would write this book if I was going to write this book, and I did not win the contest. But what happened was, after I didn't win the contest, I realized that I didn't need one. I didn't need a publisher, that I could do this all on my own, and I'm sure, Wynn, that you understand that. And that really what it was about was getting my message out there so that people who were in my position, working in a toxic work environment, sucking it up when they didn't need to suck it up, would find a place where they would allow themselves the freedom to ask themselves the questions I asked myself and turn it into a positive experience and start living your life every day as if, because we just don't ever know what the future is going to hold, and I don't want to ever anymore have any regrets. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, yeah, that's a huge nutshell right there. And if you don't mind me asking, when did the sexual harassment start, and when did the workplace bullying start?
So it wasn't sexual harassment. There was a difference. It was verbal harassment, where they would tell you were incompetent, that you were not worthy of the money you were making, that who raised you, you're stupid, just so many things that made you have no self-worth. So our harassment in our office was not sexual. And then what was the other part of your question? And that was in 2012.
That was in 2012, okay. Because I went through a similar situation in 2009, and I lived to tell about it in my book. And my dad pulled me out of there. My mom, bless her soul, didn't see what was going on. She didn't see the forest for the trees. My dad pulled me out of there. And so I think when it comes to the verbal or sexual, you need to tell a confidant that this is going on. Now, did you tell someone that this is going on, or did you just push it under the rug?
Well, I did tell someone it was going on, and one of the people that I told was his father, who really didn't do anything about it. But there was also another person who tried really hard to be an advocate for me, knowing everything that he was doing was wrong. And it caused this huge sort of division in our office of 15 people, where they had to grapple with their own, can I leave this job because I know what's going on is wrong? I mean, because when you're working and you're having either verbal or sexual harassment going on, you're kind of golden handcuffed tied there to that paycheck that's giving you your basic needs of life, your house, your food, your car. And so you really do grapple with, how do I get out of this and not put myself in a position to be homeless or, hungry. And so I think for the people that were in the office who were witnessing this, they had their own integrity battle going on. So I did tell people, and it didn't do anything, unfortunately.
In my situation, I did tell my boss, and also it didn't do anything. She didn't care. And she was the one doing it. She did not care. She had no iota of so yes, you and I were verbally abused in the workplace, which happens all the time, disabled or not. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, what are you doing now since 2012?
Well, so after I got fired, I literally spent 6 months on, and I say on the floor as a metaphor, but really just on the couch. Everybody, I had children at home, and they went to school, and my boyfriend went to work, and there I was left with myself. And so I was very depressed, and I was injured at the time. I had hurt my back, so I was taking, Percocet, so I was sort of numbing myself with these pain pills, and I just really was in a fog. And then I started writing, and I started seeing a therapist, a mind-body therapist, and he gave me an exercise called the joy exercises, and I have a chapter in my book called The Joy Jump, and what it is for 31 days straight, I had to spend 2 hours a day doing something that brought me joy. Whatever, self-joy. So it could have been, a long lunch with somebody, it could have been reading, walking on the beach, it could have been whatever it was whatever brought me the ability to smile and laugh. And I'll tell you, after I did it, because I had the time, because I wasn't working, and I was a changed person at the end because I started to actually feel joy again. Because I think in the environments that you and I are talking about, it's kind of a joy killer, and you don't realize it till you're out of it that your joy channel has been suffocated in that situation. And so for me, finding my joy was the first step, and then writing, and then I went back to school, and I got my high school diploma, which I hadn't ever done, and I learned how to do taxes so that I could work part-time during the year doing business work to make the money, and the other half of the year I could write and promote and podcast and do all the things I love.
Now, what are you doing now?
I do bookkeeping and taxes, and I podcast, and I am writing. Well, I'm actually not writing. I'm actually taking a course, a writing course, and then I'm going to start another book.
So your main job is bookkeeping in taxes.
Yeah, that's my main squeeze to make the money. You don't get rich from publishing books.
No.
Contrary to popular belief.
Contrary to popular belief. Cathy and I will tell you that. No, you don't get rich, but you do get rich off a journalism degree. And just to let you guys know, I will continue my program, and I hit a small bump in the road with my program, which I knew was coming. No big shock there, but I will continue with my program, and I will graduate in 2019.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Cathy, what is your favorite book?
That is such a loaded question. There's many books that have impacted me in my life, from novels to self-help. There's so many. But my current book right now that I'm reading on a daily basis is The Wisdom of Sundays, Life-Changing Insights from Super Soul Conversations by Oprah Winfrey. It is a fabulous collaboration of her Super Soul interviews in kind of a concise fashion, and there's so much wisdom in that book. It's just phenomenal. But one of my favorite impactful books was The Tethered Soul by Michael Singer. And Michael Singer was working in a corporate office, and he, I believe he either quit or got fired. I can't recall now what it was, but he took 40 days after I think he got fired, and he wrote The Tethered Soul, and it really is sort of in line with what I was believing at the time on life and how to live to be as happy as you can. And so I would say The Tethered Soul was very impactful during the time that I was wanting to write. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle was fabulous. And when I was younger, 2 books that really impacted me was To Kill a Mockingbird and The Outsiders.
Okay. And all those books could be found on Amazon. I know
Absolutely.
that To Kill a Mockingbird is still available on Amazon because they use it in high school. And so, Cathy, what is your best entrepreneurial moment in all this? Or you can say your best moment from your quote-unquote day job.
Oh, I would say my best moment on the book side of this was probably when I was, there's so many because I just had a lot of exciting things happen, but I was on Nancy Levin's Hay House radio show, and that was on my bucket list to be on Hay House radio. And when that happened, I was like, okay, that's it. Like, that's the top of the list. But since then, like, I'm shooting for Good Morning America, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, yes, we're all shooting for Good Morning America. I'm shooting for Good Morning America.
We're all shooting.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. But, yeah, I would say we on Hay House radio. And then I was able to do one of my book signings. I was able to teach a meditation, which I had never done before, and so I was kind of stepping out of my box. And I had so many people come up and tell me that it was one of the best meditations they'd had. But that was really a big pivotal moment for me because I had been really resistant to doing it because I didn't really know that I knew how. And so I was able to guide someone, 20 people through a meditation, and they loved it, and that was a big moment for me.
Well, that sounds like a big moment. And now, where can people find your book? I know it's on Amazon. You said to me before, and you said to me in this interview, that it's self-published by Create Space, Line 11 Create Space. So where can people find you and your book and Best Life Cafe?
So I self-published my book with Balboa Press, so you can actually get it from balboapress.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, any of those. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, Cathy Anello, Facebook, Cathy Anello. I have a public page, and I also have an author page called 6 Months to Live, Making Each Day Matter. You're welcome to go up and sign up and like that. I have a website, www.cathyanello.com, where you can subscribe to the list, and you'll get a free first chapter and some exciting things that I have coming up where I'm going to be sending out some meditations in 2018. So I'm excited about that to my subscribers. And then, yeah, that's it. Twitter, Instagram. I'm a big social media fan, and you'll always find something exciting there.
And, yes, you have a partner in crime that helps you with the Best Life Cafe. You can't do it all alone.
Oh, yeah. Best Life Cafe is my co-hostess, Terry Butler, and she is the owner of the Emergency Cafe in Los Angeles, where she helps people prepare for emergencies, which is fantastic. And the Best Life Cafe is available on Blog Talk Radio and also on iTunes. And I also do a podcast called Making Each Day Matter, and that is available on iTunes. And that has been probably one of the things I've enjoyed the most, is doing the podcast.
And Cathy, I know you have a couple of questions for me, or maybe we should make people listen to my interview. How about that? We should make people listen to my interview. Or
they can find your interview on
question now. Either or. How about both? We ask a couple of questions now, and then people can do a deep dive.
Well, yes, they can find your episode on iTunes on the Best Life Cafe. I think it'll be the second one in because we just had one more show since then. And so when for you, I think that there was a question that came up for me. It's like, what is your biggest life lesson? And I love that question because, of course, we're learning lessons all the time. But what is your biggest life lesson?
To stick to a dream. My dream is to slowly but surely walk away from education, and I will have a huge announcement here in the next couple of weeks. I just have to make sure all my ducks are in a row. And that's all I'm telling you guys right now. And things, or I'm doing another huge thing in January, which I've just decided that I'm doing with one of my books, and that won't be, I won't make that announcement until January, at least the first week of January, on my new podcast, Ask When, which will be a brand new podcast because we're facing Butterflies of Wisdom out. We're transferring it over to Ask When as of February, so January will be the last month of the Butterflies of Wisdom, so you guys can still hear Butterflies of Wisdom, but the new format will be Ask When. And so my biggest life lesson is to continue with my dream of becoming a journalist.
I think the wonderful thing about podcasting, is that people don't realize what goes into a podcast, and because there's so many podcasts out there. You asked what is your favorite podcast of me in the questions, and I thought, there's so many, I don't even know how I could pick. But to do a podcast, again, you're not getting rich from doing a podcast. You're sharing your wisdom, and a lot goes into it. And there's equipment, and the right equipment, and so I just think it's awesome that you're going to start another one and transition your Butterflies of Wisdom into Ask When, because I think that the thing about podcasts is they are always evolving. They're very organic. You get people in their most real sense. And so I think that's really exciting. I love that you're transitioning into a new podcast. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that my fan base would hurry up and help me out because I need questions to answer from my fan base about life with the lens of cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
And so, maybe we can get my fan base to hurry up and to help me out. I need you guys to help me out. If you want
help her out.
Successful. Yes. And, so and I have another huge announcement in the next couple of weeks that I think I need to do now finally, and I will let you guys know what that announcement is. But I definitely appreciate Cathy's time this morning, and I hope you guys do go listen to the Best Life Cafe with yours truly, where Terry and Cathy interviewed me, and we had a bunch of fun on that. And I talk about my latest book, The View from My Hills, and The View from My Fabulous Teaching Desk. The View from My Hills is actually another book that I have written, and that can be found on Amazon, you guys, along with Cathy's book. And please leave a review on Cathy's book, my book, because all that does is get Amazon's Cookie Monsters up in the rankings. All that does is Cookie Monster comes and finds the book and puts them up at number 1.
Right. It's even with podcasts.
Yes, if you want
it's like
me to do an analogy.
Yeah.
I
think that people don't know.
Analogy.
Yeah. People don't know how important those reviews on your podcast and those reviews on your books are. They're so important.
Yes, they're so important. So please, when you go purchase Cathy's book and my book, please leave a review so that Cookie Monster can come in and find it and shoot it to number 1. We all want to be Amazon bestsellers. Cathy's aiming for Good Morning America. I'm probably aiming somewhere close to it, but I'm not that good yet. But with reviews. You never know who's watching the books. So, as I said, please leave a review. I can't stress that enough. And I appreciate Cathy's time. And I will talk to you guys later. And you guys will hear this episode out small. And I will send Cathy the link. And Cathy knows what to do. Share it out.
Yep.
We'll see how it goes. Thanks to you guys.
Thanks, Lynn. Have a happy holiday, everybody.